to say to us, we were just, heard, we're presenting concussions in the game of football to the board of directors of the NFL. So we were to that extent.
So don't leave your view of that, so you know.
So we're presenting to the NFL board of directors about concussions in the game of football.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, members of the NFL. Thank you for having us back. Once again, we are Athletic Sports Consulting. My name is Cody Momars, and I'm a lifelong football player.
My name is Keenan Leary, and I am also a lifelong football player.
Last time we were here, you were adamant and that you believed you were doing everything that is right and correct when it comes to protecting your players. However, the public, the fans, and the players disagree. It is important to consider these are the two most important stakeholders. Without either group of them, there is no NFL. It is also important to know that it is your moral duty to make sure that people like Junior Seau, Mike Webster, Dave Dewars, and Andre Waters, Ray Easterling, men that killed themselves because of what the game did to them. It is your duty to make sure they did not die in vain. We are back today with our solutions that outline what you should do to not only prolong the game of football, but also prolong the lives of those who play it.
Now, Cody talked about these names, and that's some of them. There are 20,000 different retired football players who filed for reparations in the class action lawsuit, claiming neurological disorders such as ALS, better known as Lou Gehrig's disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and CTE, otherwise known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Now, the NFL, you put $765 million over 65 years, which equals about $11.7 million a year. Not an extraordinary amount to the NFL, a $15 billion industry, but an extraordinary amount to some of these players who are suffering an incredible amount of pain as well as their families. Now, what is happening is a lot of these players are not able to receive their funds because the bureaucratical mess that is happening, and they are not able to receive the payment that were court ordered to them. The reason for this is after they have met the BAP criteria, which was set by the doctors that were hired by the NFL, they're having to see even more specialists across the country, thus forcing them into even more debt and losing time, precious time with their loved ones. Now, this needs to be fixed by creating a more streamlined approach. Any player that has met the BAP criteria should be able to receive their payments. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a criteria. These people do need to get checked. They need to make sure that they are actually suffering from these illnesses. But after they do, they need to receive their payments. It is time to serve those who serve the game of football. And that brings me to those who are currently playing. The men who were out on the field last February and who are going to come out on the field in September. While there is the assumption of the risk at this point, these guys know what's happening, right? They all saw the studies. But we're telling 22-year-old kids to make this assumption about their future. And in reality, that's just not going to happen. And I know legally now the NFL is covered. But ethically, is it right? Is it right to know that this 22-year-old kid that has no idea what he's doing to himself really is going to go on into the future and possibly have ALS or Alzheimer's, something like this, and not be covered? That's why there needs to be a broader implementation of the NFL 88 health plan. There needs to be something to protect these people when they are 40 and 50 years old being diagnosed with neurological disorders that are normally reserved for 75-year-olds. Which again brings me to, what are we doing to protect these men on the field? Football is the most advanced game in the entire world as far as how it is viewed, how it is filmed, and the way it portrays and the way you can scout your competition. You are able to look on your iPad and break down film to the very minutia against your competition. There are drones flying over games that can film down to the speck of grass, and there are different ways of scouting that other sports just simply don't have. But why is it that when the NFL held a competition for the best helmets, the largest contract that you're with is the 4th best helmet in all of football? 4th. These concussions come from hits to the head, and yet their 4th best helmet is what's being used. Technology is advancing, unlike anything we've ever seen in the 21st century. There's no reason that I retired from football last year and I was wearing essentially the same helmet my father was wearing 35 years before me. We need to advance technology along with football. We do that through 3 technologies that we mentioned previously, the Q-Color, the Vices helmet and the Imprezo gel.
The final solution is slightly more abstract, and it involves changing the perception of how the game is viewed. Right now, football is viewed as a game of viciousness and brutality. Fans of all ages love big hits. But think about what that creates. Now, the fans love the most destructive part of the game. Right now, your biggest selling point is actually the most damaging to the players. Imagine if NASCAR came and said, "We love the crashes. You want to buy a box DVD set of the worst ones? We got it." That's what you're doing. You advertise hits. Your broadcasters advertise hits. That needs to change. We need to highlight the skill and athleticism and talent that is used. Now, for a viewer that's been watching football for 15, 20 plus years, that might not work. They have their set in their ways, they know what they like, they know why they watch the game. However, this can work on the next generation of fans. This can work on the youth to create systematically a more intelligent fan that understands the game on a broader level, that understands that yes, hits are a part, but that is not why I watch it. In addition, that also helps the younger players in terms of teaching them the correct way to play the game of football by teaching them that their helmet is not a weapon. It is a piece of protection. Last time I was here, I talked about how much the player pool is diminishing. And yes, you might not feel that in 1 year or 2 years, but in 5, 10, 15 years, when you have less players entering the draft, because you had less players play college football, because you had less players play high school football, because you had less players play youth football, you're gonna feel it. The game of football is changing because of fear. The game that we both played because we loved it, the game that changed our lives, is falling apart. You are the most important piece of the football industrial complex. You are the leader. You need to set the ethical standard. You need to be followed by people. That is how you can change the game effectively.
I'm going to leave you with one word, and that word is trust. Now you might be saying, we're an ethics company, what are we doing up here talking about trust? Telling us, you should be telling us what is the right thing to do. But to the eyes of the public, trust is what the company does ethically. It's, are they doing the right thing or the wrong thing for their employees and for society? For a long time, the NFL has been one of the most trusted organizations in America. You own a day. Sunday is football day in America. And that is something that is unheard of around the world. America trusted that the values that were instilled in their youth while playing football, values that we learned, like teamwork, hard work, getting knocked down and getting right back up, and putting the goals of your team in front of the goals of yourself. They trusted that these values were worth the bumps and bruises that came along with football, because there are hits. But they're not trusting anymore because of what they've seen. They've seen players that can't walk anymore because they brains are not, they don't function. They've seen players that can no longer do the daily functions of an adult. And then they've also seen the way that the NFL has responded to these. In order to gain back America's trust, in order to gain back the public's trust, the NFL has to make right with the players that dedicated their entire lives to this game. They have to ensure that they're helping them every step of the way through their journey through this difficult illness. They have to make sure that those who are stepping out on the field next year or the year after that are not only wearing the best gear possible, but are covered in the long term. It is upon the NFL to do the right thing and gain America's trust back, so you can continue to unify the nation for 20 weeks a year like you've been doing for the past 40 years. We have been Athletic. Thank you very much.